Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your entertainment. This particular story is called A Hidden History, written by FarmWitch4275. The young girl walked to the edge of the Blackwoods and stood in front of the imposing facade of the largest forest bordering the Elven kingdoms. The trees were almost a few hundred feet in the air, their roots tangled across the strangling ground, while the bark had the strangest glow to it. A shiver ran down her spine as she tried to collect her thoughts and calm her racing mind. There was no sugarcoating how dangerous the forest could be. She didn't care though. She had a job to do. She took a deep breath and readied her mind. Here we go. Don't fail, Ceres. She moved closer to the trees and climbed up one of them. Concentrate on the bark, feel the tree's heartbeat, rustling leaves and swaying branches as its voice. Listen to it, feel it, understand it. Her pointy ears twitched excitedly as she closed her eyes, calmly remembering aloud her professor's teachings as a swarm of green energy began to surround her. She carefully used her magic to tie a blindfold over her eyes, and she breathed deeply as the magic surrounded her. Her mind's eye changed to visualize the world around her, the magic taking hold of her, an invisible hand reaching out to guide her as she took her first footsteps. The magical energy swirled around her and began to take effect. Massive tree roots moved up and around, providing a stepping stone for her dainty elven feet. Trees shuffled across the ground, providing her a path forward. Mighty branches, harder than steel, gently moved aside and provided a path. She could sense there was something strange in the air as she continued to walk forward. The trees were all talking to each other, a modicum of both fear and excitement. Some trees spoke of being unable to breathe due to a toxic smoke, then suddenly breathing in fresh air than they'd ever tasted. Other trees spoke of strange noises, of grinding and cutting. Others speak of strange birds far higher in the clouds than they'd ever witnessed. Saplings spoke of the strange rain that made them grow faster, while others spoke of the corpses of the dead being carried away and the fallen being removed in the dead of night. Ceres continued to walk, blind on the path the trees were supplying her, as she daintily wandered through the forest until the trees deposited her in a clearing. She could feel the soft brush of the grass under her feet. Listening closer, she heard the directions given to her by the rustling leaves and creaking wood, telling her to keep moving forward. Her training told her to trust the trees, trust the area, sense their whispers, and go for it. Ceres stopped feeling the tree branches and roots underfoot as she felt a slight incline followed by green grass. The trees kept whispering, keep going, go forward. She followed their direction. So much preparation went into this, caring for a garden of flowers for a year, performing rituals and rites revolving entirely around blessing trees and scenery, making a bond with the water spirit and the tree spirit to strengthen her connection with the Aether. The daily ritual of lovingly planting a new sapling at the forest's edge and blessing it with nutrient-rich water spells. It was working. Flower patches were appearing on her feet. Trees nearby grew several feet higher, stronger, greener. Groundwater rose up several feet, allowing the forest to take advantage of it. Nutrients in detritus and decay on the forest floor accelerated their decomposition, creating a thin carpet of fresh nutrients for the forest. Ceres continued to follow the forest's instructions, her every step nourishing the ground for the next generation of trees and flowers as grass grew fast and proud in her footsteps. She kept moving forward. The forest's borders expanded with her as she reached a clearing and kept moving. The forest's whispers slowly faded and further away as she got, and she slowed her pace. Suddenly, a loud vocalization erupted from the forest as she stopped dead in her tracks. Every tree, grass clump, and flower suddenly screamed, "Stop! Be still!" Ceres froze. Trees and forests knew when their caregivers and mages are in danger and know when to alert them. Ceres removed her blindfold. What greeted her was an enormous machine, a gigantic mechanical scorpion-like beast of steel, plating and grinding gears staring straight at her. It was at least 30 feet high, 6 massive feet with large claws at the tips, the joints covered in armor plating and heavy steel. The machines had a face, 6 large glass panes that looked like eyes with armor plating arranged to appear like a face. Mounted under its body was an array of machinery looking like saw blades, drills, and what Saris knew to be cannons, just like those used by the mountain elves. Saris was frozen solid. She couldn't move out of the sheer biblical terror at the sight of the enormous monster staring straight at her. She closed her eyes by instinct as a bright light, a laser of some kind, appeared and washed over her for several seconds. She opened one eye sheepishly, looking around her as if expecting to find herself in heaven. No, she was still in the field, looking at the giant spider machine. Suddenly, a loud vocalization came from the beast, an amplified but definitely male voice in clear Elvish. "Put some goddamn pants on!" The beast yelled out, echoing across the forest for miles around, before it turned around and stomped way back from her. "I cannot believe this bullshit! They told me this planet was clean!" Sarah stood there, dumbfounded, for what seemed an eon, before she magicked up her huntress gear and sprinted at it, following it. "Wait, wait!" Sarah yelled out as her leather shoes frantically tried to catch up to the giant machine. Sarah's elven feet were able to keep up with it, barely. With a few lucky helpings from passing trees, she was able to jump and climb onto one of its legs. With great difficulty and a little bit of magic, she was able to clamber onto its head. Her elven body allowed her to keep up with the swaying and bouncing as it clawed its way through the jagged terrain, eventually leading to a mountain range. Mount Caridian, what is it doing here? She asked herself as she held onto some object sticking out of the top of its head. "I'm going home! Get off my roof!" The machine yelled out, trying to shake her off. "No, no, no!" Sarah squealed as she held on for dear life, reaching her foot out to the mountain. "Fine! You asked for it, girlie!" The machine yelled, drastically increasing its speed. It charged up the mountain, perfectly handling the sheer vertical incline within a few minutes of starting its climb. Its giant claws dug into the side of the rock, and it charged up the mountainside, quickly reaching a point where it could climb to the side and begin walking along the jagged peaks like an actual spider. Sarah's held on for dear life, sometimes screaming in terror as it jumped across mile-wide chasms with no effort and climbed up near 90-degree vertical cliffs as if it was just a casual stroll through a wheat field. Sarah could not help but continue to scream in terror, clinging tightly to the object that she was holding onto. She continued to squeal in fear, even as the beast stopped and its pilot climbed out. He stood in front of her, tapping his foot impatiently as she squealed and gasped her terror out. It took a while to calm down. "You have a lovely scream. It's like a constantly shattering glass being scraped across the chalkboard," he said, smiling at her sarcastically. "I would ask, however, that you stop screaming, as I only have one pair of ears, and I would rather not replace them." Sarah was speechless. A human, an actual human, was standing in front of her, relatively tall, wearing heavy armor and carrying a portable cannon. Brown hair, blue eyes, smooth round ears, and a strange smirk that showed perfect sparkling clean teeth. Sarah couldn't really speak as she stared at him in sheer awe, shock, and terror. "So, you gonna let that go, or what?" he said again, still smirking. Sarah squealed and let go in panic, losing her balance as she toppled over. He grabbed her arm, stopping her from falling over. She blinked as she felt the cold steel of his armor against her skin. This was real. "Oh, my gods, relax! Please relax, jeez!" he said, and used the machine nearby, calling a platform and gently lowering them to the ground. "Are all people on this planet so jumpy?" You are a human," Sarah said, pointing at him as she backed away. "Yeah, whoa, wait! You know what humans are?" It was his turn to be confused and shocked. "Of course. You don't know what elves are," Sarah replied in kind, now just as confused. "Okay, obviously we need to have a little chat, but, I did tell you to put some pants on." He gestured to her huntress clothing. "I am wearing pants. I use this to hunt deer in the forest. It's a common garb for us," Sarah protested and checked her gear. The human rolled his eyes and started walking away, holding his hands in the air while shaking his head. "Why?" "Hey, wait!" Sarah squealed and charged after him. It was only now that Sarah noticed where she was, in the center of a massive factory complex. A factory complex that looked like it was built specifically to manufacture the very same machine that she came here in. There were hundreds of them, in many different configurations, styles, and paint colors, all built to offer a different function. They were all arrayed along the ground in a parking lot. Their legs were tucked neatly underneath them, halving their effective size, stacking on top of each other like crates and boxes. Other machines, cranes, trains, and other things were charging about, assembling parts, pieces, and components, then slotting them into place. Sparks were flying, the air filled with sounds and sirens of massive industry. Sarah swallowed the human while trying not to panic at the sight of hundreds of those powerful war machines. Was he assembling an army? Was he preparing an invasion? The elders needed to be told about this, urgently. "Come on in, you wipe your feet and have a seat. Coffee, tea, soda, or juice?" the human said, offering her entry into the building in a gentlemanly manner.
Tea, please,"
Sarah sheepishly responded as she ushered herself inside. The sight that greeted her was, to say the least, far from what she was expecting. It was a cozy worker's hut with a shag carpeting and wood walls, a far contrast from the rest of the place. It looked like it was cautiously crafted, handmade even, with a dining table, chairs, and comfy single bed, effectively an entire house cooped up in a small but cozy space. By the time Sarah got seated, he presented her with tea and some cookies.
Thank you,
She looked at him expectantly. "Marcus," he replied, helping himself to a can of soda from the mini-fridge nearby. A few minutes of awkward silence followed, Sarah's trying to think of what to say, and Marcus trying to level best not to stare.
"So, you're a human then?"
"Pretty much. Apart from some upgrades here and there, I'm a human. So, you're an elf then?" Marcus replied in kind.
Yes. Yes, I am. I am an elf of White Bark Sanctum. I guess the term you humans used to use is, wood elves, I think,"
Sarah said, putting down her now empty teacup. "Why?" Marcus said, looking up at the ceiling. "Sorry. Don't worry about it." He reached out, offering his right hand. "Captain Marcus James Flint, independent pilot operating on behalf of Jupiter Driveyard Starship Manufacturers." Saris took his hand and shook it.
"Saris Marinus, just a hunter and practicing mage."
"Pleasure. Now, you said you know about humans, yes? Please do tell."
"Well, history books say that humans were on Verinia around 600 years ago. That's when the first human was ever seen. There was civilization, wars, conflicts, and other such stuff after that. Then one day, some kind of plague appeared and wiped them out. It didn't take long. They were just, gone. It's been like that for a few hundred years now, and suddenly, out of the blue, you and your machines arrived, so..."
Saris explained what she could according to her limited knowledge. Marcus looked up in the air with an eye roll again. "Why?" Sarah, seemingly aware that she wouldn't know exactly why he kept doing that, continued.
"So, you are a human then. So humans survived, I guess. What's a starship? What's a Jupiter drive, and what's a yard? What's a pilot?"
"Okay, so, history lesson. There's this planet a fair bit away that's called Earth, okay? It's, the cradle of humanity. It's where we came from. About 6,000 years ago, a dying precursor civilization known only as the Greys came to Earth and abducted thousands of people, spreading them across the galaxy in a strange experiment. Before the experiment could accomplish anything, this precursor civilization died out." Marcus began to explain. Sarah's jaw hit the floor, the wheels in her head suddenly coming to a stop as he began to explain. "So what you basically told me is that this planet was one of the worlds the Greys used to conduct this experiment they never completed, and the people they dropped here were all killed off because of some kind of disease barely a few centuries ago. And you've been here all along and unwittingly got into the strange experiment along with the humans. 'Cause yeah, I did a scan on you, and you have no human DNA in you. So, it seems, contrary to my previous plans, I will be sticking around for a bit longer." Marcus cheerfully retrieved a new can of soda with a smile. Sarah leaned back in her seat, jaw open, shocked eyes and heavy, slow breaths as she started processing the information she heard. She was so concentrated on trying to understand the shit that she just heard, she failed to notice her already loose-fitting top fall off. Marcus simply rolled his eyes and looked up at the ceiling. "My God, seriously, why?" Ceres remained still for a few more minutes before Marcus got up and walked back outside. Time to get back to work. New work. Got to start rebuilding a factory to start building archaeological equipment. When you're ready to go home, let me know and I'll give you a lift back to your forest. End of story. I would just quickly like to thank the T5 peeps: Dragon Soup, Cold War Boomerwaffen, Severin Cerberus, Red Panda 121, Leslie 517, Bushmaster 177, Caspar Arnold, Cam Maxwell, Sans the Skeleton, Light Jock, Dragzoon WRE, and Lord Azrakal. Thank you very much.